To our virtual fall supplier development mixer. This is our first time hosting it on a virtual platform. So I'm really excited and looking forward to hosting this 2-day event. You are in the session entitled Business Development Through Capacity Building and Community Engagement, led by the wonderful Amber D. Smith, CEO of Farms by Amber. And I can share a little bit about Amber. Amber D. Smith is the farm her and CEO of Farms by Amber LLC, an urban farm and agricultural consulting company based in Independence, Missouri. Farms by Amber is committed to applying the science of farming to cultivate the soil, liberate the spirit, and nurture the soul. Our mission is to support agricultural producers in thriving as business owners through sustainable practices and active community involvement. Farms by Amber LLC is passionate about enhancing both soil health and personal well-being. We use the 4 C's framework: capacity, capability, capital, and community to deliver targeted training, mentoring, and resources. This approach strengthens business operations, improves skills, boosts financial stability, and expands networking opportunities. Our efforts include leading business accelerator programs that secure long-term contracts for agricultural producers, enhancing their profitability, and helping close the wealth gap. And I will hand it over to Amber.
Well, good morning, ladies. We are a small group, so you don't need to be on mute. You can actually come off mute. I probably won't hear your background noise anyway, since it's going to be a small, intimate group, which I love. Thank you, British, for the warm introduction. It's so cool when you have your bio read, like, oh, wow, that's me. That is me. A little bit about me. Let me share my screen. Let's see if we present.
And I didn't introduce myself. I am the Equitable Supply Chain Development Manager here at Chicago Food Policy Action Council, and I am responsible for coordinating this event, and I'm happy to be here with you all.
She's the one who put it all together, so congratulations to you, British, on your first time out. And we also got someone listening. Katia Balakini is our graphic recorder. I don't know if she's going to be taking some notes for it. It's so cool. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Can you see the visual note taker as well?
Can you see the
Yeah, the
visual?
little teal dot. Is that what you mean?
No, hold on just a second.
It's too advanced. I don't even know what that is.
In the upper right-hand corner, it says Katia Blacchini. You see business development through capacity building and community.
Yes.
You can see her?
Yeah, it looks like another person essentially up there in the right corner.
Oh, it's supposed to be spotlit as well. Hold on.
Yeah, I think it's only showing the screen that you shared. I don't think it's splitting the screen between the two.
But it was spotlighted, British. So I think I'll start drawing, and you'll see that right now it looks just like background, and you'll see illustrations.
Got it. All right. Enjoy.
Thanks.
Go ahead. I'll stop talking.
Awesome. So let me fly through this real quick because British talked about me. I am a farmer here in Independence, Missouri. Independence is a suburb of Kansas City, Missouri. One of my clients that I actually serve is the Kansas City Chiefs. And as y'all can tell, we are completely on a roll right now. A little bit about me. I started full-time farming in April of 2020. I got into agriculture actually through depression. I took care of a friend who had cancer, and she had these plants while she was sick in her enclosed patio and told me don't kill them. I did not kill them. It's really interesting because I pledged AKA, and at the time you had to keep an ivy alive. I killed that several times. Thank God I wasn't too close for my mom because she's got green thumbs everywhere. But I had a friend who owned a landscaping business, built me out some garden beds, and I used the 2017 season, 2018 season to grieve by growing things. And I was feeding my neighbors at the time. I was still teaching, and so I had a community school garden. I expanded that, and I've always been growing. But then 2020 came and the pandemic hit, and I lost my job April 10th of 2020. Best thing ever. And I literally posted on Facebook like, hey, who will buy from me? And these 4 people said we would. And so I packaged up everything. You can see it's not green. It's in like plastic bags everywhere, not very sustainable. But I got started and I charged them $17 for 20 items. So was not very business savvy, but again, I got started. And my business has grown over into this. So I have clients of Lowe's Hotel, Chief Stadium, Whole Foods, 3 accounts there. In the bottom left-hand corner right here is my actual growing space. I have 1/4 of an acre, but I also lease land 6 acres down the street, and that's where the potatoes grow and sunflowers and herbs. Every part of my farm that I'm going to talk to you about today, I can do. I also run an agricultural consulting firm because what I learned is my background is in education. I spent the first 20 years of my life, first 2 years teaching science, the next 18 years teaching math at all levels, training teachers to be teachers, evaluating them to be better teachers, and certifying them to be teachers, certifying school districts, all of those things. So I came into farming know to do all of the things, right? Make sure you got your MBE, make sure you have your Master Gardener license. Like I was very concerned about being sued and food safety and all of those things. And so I did all of the things, and I learned on my journey that not every farmer has done all of those things, and that's okay. So I was able to do quite a bit of knowledge share with those farmers about the progressions that I had made in my business in such a short amount of time, and in exchange for them teaching me some of their agricultural knowledge and history making. So this is just a snippet of my life and my travels. You'll see me all across United States and the globe. I had a chance to travel to Japan and spend some time in rice fields and go see the contain or the allotments when I was in London, and I'm sorry, in the UK. And so it's been great to see agriculture across the world. But these are my travels. There's accelerator programs where I help other Black farmers primarily gain access and access to larger supply chains. And then, so you see several accelerator programs where I get a chance to go visit their farms and have conversations with them to make sure that they're operationally and sound. A big thing that I have learned is many folks in agriculture run operational businesses, but not profitable. And again, because I was making the transition from it and to this needing to be full-time, every part of my farm needed to be able to make income, because this is how I raise my family. So you'll see my son Benjamin in the upper left-hand corner. He's gotten quite a bit busy. He is our chief hydration engineer. That just means he's our water guy, making sure everything's together. And he used to be our harvest engineer, but he learned that we should stop biting into things that are green. We need to wait till they ripen up and turn red or purple. So he cut that part out. But every part of my farm is what we're doing. We're moving into cattle. So if you see that picture of that red Angus, that will actually be a cow on our land, which we're pursuing larger land right now. So moving on. So we're going to talk today a little bit about your brand, and we're going to really talk a little bit more about the business development that you'll have through community development and capacity building. So your brand pretty much is what other people say about you when you're not in the room. So I always like to land it, people buy from people, people buy people, not from people. So the folks that were my initial first 4 clients were all my Zumba clients. So back in the day, I've had many, many lives. I used to teach Zumba. And so my following on Facebook are my friends that have followed me from that. And as I've transitioned into new things, as life has life, they lived with me. And so they became clients of my agriculture business. So today we're going to talk about embracing your identity as CEO and as presidents, because a lot of times we don't think about ourselves as that way when we're in food and food services businesses. We're going to talk about the 4 C's framework for success. And then we're going to talk about what strategic growth and next steps look like. So I always like to start with this so that we can kind of level set things. There's 2 titles that we see primarily in the companies to which we utilize. So we see CEOs and we see presidents, right? So the CEO of John Deere is John May, but the president is Ryan Campbell. But we see in other companies, they have like CEO and president. And I always wondered, well, why are they called CEO and president? And it's a very good title. There's a very good reason. So the CEO handles the strategy of the business, the overall management, and the president operates, he or she overcomes the presidential roles, the daily operations. But it's interesting because when I dug a little bit further into every single one of these companies, while the CEO and president, like Nina Kruger from Purina, she operates the title of CEO and president, they also gave her a COO, which is Chief Operating Officer. That Chief Operating Officer just makes sure that the daily tasks get done. So I want to pause for a second because we have such a small group and I really want to know, like, Sarah, can you tell me a little bit about you and your farm? And then Viviana, I'll come right over to you.
Well, mine will be not too difficult because I don't have a farm.
Okay.
I did grow up on a farm and my parents still have the land, but I actually work for Purdue Extension and I talk to farmers, I talk to buyers. I'm trying to just help educate farmers or people that want to get started down that entrepreneur route so they can sell a bunch of amazing local food that's healthy for us.
Awesome. Viviana, can you give me a little bit?
Sure thing. Good morning, everyone. My name is Vivi Moreno. I'm a senior food justice organizer with the Little Village Environmental Justice Organization here in Chicago, or El Vejo, because our name is really long. And within that, part of their food justice campaign. We have 4 different food justice campaigns, from mutual aid meal deliveries to installing vegetable gardens with residents. We have an allotment community garden. And then the project that I'm involved with is developing a 1.3 acre farm that's located within a park in Chicago. And so currently we are a nonprofit farm. This was our 3rd season. Everything that we grow gets distributed freely to the community on a weekly basis. And we have done the calculations and we have produced around $22,000 worth of produce with around about 8,000 pounds of food. My reason for being here today is that I think we're noticing a growing trend. It's kind of weird. There's a growing trend of climate justice and environmental justice funding kind of going down. But then there's very slow, right? But there is foundation funding or philanthropic funding for urban ag going up little by little. But even then, I think I'm now at a crossroads in our vision and in our project where I kind of would like to be just diversifying our funding revenues, right? So what would it look like for us to start creating business ventures within the farm? The goal for the farm ultimately is to be a demonstration farm, educational programming center for folks that speak Spanish and English. But currently we are everything we do distribute it for free because we're giving ourselves a few years to learn how to grow as a collective. But eventually our vision is to become a community enterprise or a community business. And I think we are getting close to the moment where we're we might need to start exploring ways to find ways, how do we make money? Because funding is so volatile that eventually we need to figure out how to be sustainable. And that's why I'm here today. I'm sorry that was a really long intro, but yeah.
No, it's good. It helps me. So I want to talk a little bit about, thank you for sharing, both Sarah and Vivi. Do you want me to call you Vivi or Viviana?
Vivi is fine. Thank you.
Vivi, okay. As farmers, working with farmers and starting a farm, there's kind of this shift that I feel like we need to focus on in farming, because we don't really categorize ourselves as a business, but agricultural is a business. It's an industry that makes $1.5 trillion per year just in the US. We haven't talked about exporting, and United States exports quite a bit of food, but there's not anything in terms of food, fuel, or fiber that farmers don't raise or grow. And so the economic impacts, the benefits, the connections from agriculture to healthcare, agriculture to insurance, agriculture to stock exchange, agriculture to construction, all of those connections, nothing in this is siloed. And so I think talking about the economic advantages to it will definitely help us as we bring into this conversation. So there's 2 things that I see have been a large gap when I'm working with farmers and talking to farmers. Is one is we're not approaching this as a business. We're just kind of doing it, and we think that the labor that we've put into our food should be given away for free. No, when that water costs you, hopefully if you didn't catch it by rain, It's going to cost you those seed costs right now are ridiculous. So that's why we're talking about some regenerative practices, is like letting the lettuce go up and go back to seed, capturing those seeds, saving it for next year, all of those things, really bringing into those things. And then we're talking about the climate smart practices that will not, that are allowing us to be more impaired. So limiting our abilities to have more water resistant seeds or drought resistant seeds. I read the other day that there's saltwater pushing up into the Mississippi. What does that have on the northern states and all of the states, not just Louisiana that it borders and all of those things? And so all of these factors go into this. But I'm showing these big companies right now to show the connection that while one person sets the strategy, they have support, their operational support. And as farmers, you'll see this, we're used to just doing the do. Like, we know exactly what it is we need to do for farm. This was a fallow year for me. After this call, I'll go outside, put my overalls on, and rip out dead plants, get everything treated and fertilized because it needs to overwinter, and I need to plant some garlic, right? Those presidential duties have been something that I've labored into. But what's most important is understanding and navigating the space between the strategy of a CEO and the plan. So, Sarah, as you're working with your farmers, they have a plan. They know what to do, when to be planted, when it's coming out. They probably don't know where it's going to be sold to. So that needs to be on the CEO side. Before I plant anything, before I take a farm animal on farm, I know what that sales pipeline looks like. And so I'm navigating those spaces currently because I don't want to be at a deficit. My first season, I was negative $32,000. And we made it through the season. I was depressed. I was tired. But to see that negative sign on my Schedule F, I was like, ooh, it's a huge ding. What are some of the things that I need to learn to be a better steward of that? So I want to spend some time talking about the duties of a CEO and the duties of a president. So, Vivi, as you talked about, you're running a community business. When you're looking at the folks that you're servicing, can you identify, and you don't have to call them by name, who fits the profile of a CDO and who fits the profile of the president? Because you need both. They're not roles that compete with each other, they complement each other. So, you talked about how you're just growing food right now and you're just giving everything away. But have you started to identify what are some places that food can go and what that would look like?
Yeah, and we kind of did before we even started the farm. I think these 3 years have mostly just served to build a farm team, to build up their skill. And now I think that we've gotten to a point where I think we have farmers now, as part of our farm. But yeah, we have identified, and as you're talking, I'm like actually writing down all the like partnerships that I kind of had put on hold. Like, hey, whenever we do make the decision to start selling our produce, like, who are the folks that we want to like reach out to? So I do have some folks in mind already.
Yeah, so we're going right towards that direction. Sarah, when you're thinking about those folks that you service, have you identified like the strengths and the not so strongs yet of those farmers that you're working with?
So it's still kind of early stages, but we're going to have something here in Indiana that we haven't had in years. It's the Market Ready program to help them. And so as we kind of go down this road and continue teaching on a topic that's really high demand, I'm also taking notes over here. This is just really good stuff that I will be able to hopefully tell to the farmers, and they can soak it up, and we can continue supporting them as they carry all this out.
Okay. So I'm gonna give you this so that they can sign out. Let me find my chat. So that as you're working with them, did it give you the link? Hold on. Uh-oh, something weird happened.
It took you to the internet.
All right, you see it?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, that will give you like a little cheat sheet. And when someone is talking about what their strategy is, you'll be able to flip and say, okay, so my strategy is to get a farm, right? My strategy is to move to have Angus cows. So I'm going to actually do a cross between Angus and Akaushi or Wagyu beef, right? So before I ever do that, it takes 2 years to from the time you bring the cattle on farm to the time you're ready to have it processed, or you can go 18 months. It'll be quite tender then, right? So what I needed to learn is, what is a HACCP? So hazard analysis, critical control points. I needed to know where are the danger zones found in my supply chain before I start. Why? Because that HACCP plan is $20,000. Do I foresee having $20,000 in a year? Probably, but just in case, I want to know what are the plans that I need. That's a strategy. So I went, thank you. That's a strategy. So I needed to make sure that I knew before I need that HACCP plan, go get trained. I did. The presidential side of me breaks down that into smaller pieces. So to actualize my HACCP plan, I go to other people's farms and I look for critical control points where it could cause infection. Thank God that we're having so many things that are happening with McDonald's and all and listeria outbreaks, because I'm having a chance to go back and really land my knowledge of what it looks like. And I'll send you the whole deck if it'll help you guys not have to write down everything. I got you. And then the long-term goals. I know sometimes as farmers, we like to plan for 1 year at a time, but really stretch them to pull that out to 3 to 5 years. Because it's going to take, every season we know is going to be different as climate changes keep happening. Like this morning, we started at 40 degrees. By this afternoon, it'll be 90 degrees here. Well, we have to plan for what that looks like, because we hope to make some changes in climate change, but it may take 5 to 10 years for that impact to be rationalized. And then the president is going to establish some of those SMART goals, those measurable targets and milestones for tracking that progress. But before any of that can happen, we've got to talk about what is the community aspect that we need to be able to have our businesses grow. So I like to think of it in terms of like your network. So I've heard my network is the same as my net worth, right? So that could be your family, your friends, Chicago Food Policy Institute. That could be your local extension agents. But if you pull out a little bit more, it could be USDA, it could be FSA, it could be NRCS, it can be SARE. A lot of times as farmers serving folks that are farmers, we don't go outside of USDA and talk to our friends in Small Business Administration, which are offering tons and tons of business practices, to which I've found most farmers are ill-equipped for that part. So that could be small business development centers, those partnerships that they have with that we could just reach across the aisle and talk with. And then you've also got SBA, MBDA, Minority Business Development Associate SCORE. SCORE gives them a wonderful mentor. One of the things that I'm moving into is government contracting. I have a SCORE, a retired government and international exporter as my mentor, Elwood Knight. He is amazing. He answers all of my questions that I have and helps me navigate that space. And of course, LISC, Local Investment Securities. I always forget what this stands for, but they provide $10,000 grants that aren't as competitive and hard to get to help with the small things. So marketing, web design, all of those things that farmers can really leverage. So I want to talk a little bit about a strategic planning framework and then get into what this community looks like. And then from community, we're going to back up and go directly into capacity. So there's 4 things that I found that people need, farm agricultural businesses need for their business. So it's community, it's capacity, capability, and capital. Nothing happens without community. Our businesses will be very, very small and limited if we're the one-person show. And having been the one-person show, it's exhausting. Waking up in the morning to harvest the produce, wash the produce, package the produce, bag it up, then go deliver it. That I was exhausted, but I've done it. And sometimes it takes bumping your heads to figure out that ain't really what you want to do. And then capacity is, I define capacity as what you're currently doing, because more than likely you would be doing more if you weren't at capacity. and analyzing what is that actual capacity? What are you currently actually doing? Capability is what could you do if you needed additional resources? And you're capable of it, but you might need some additional support. And then capital, this is always my favorite. It's usually limited resources, but a lot of folks think capital is limited to money. It's not. It's social capital too. It's Bridget, a British calling saying, hey, can you do this workshop for me? That expands my reach and extends my social capital. It allows me to partner with Vivi and say, hey, this is what our prototype looks like in Kansas City, a food disruption, so that we can really empower our network. But I want to focus in right now on community. I think it's important that every language has meaning and connotation. So while we're in community together, I want to make sure that I give you a definition to which when I call in community, you understand what it is I mean by community. So community is a powerful collective of people who uplift, they support, and they empower each other. It's a vibrant, dynamic network of farmers, partners, and allies. Farmers are the key to this work. There's a lot of doing for farmers without the inclusion of the farmers. Nothing happens without the farmer, because they're going to help you with the operational analysis of if what you're actually thinking about is actually doable. The partners are the ones that are going to be, I always like to put partners and allies like the SMEs. Like you have to be able to sit between those who want something done and those that are doing it and say, hey, is this possible? Yes or no? So that's in community. But we're going to take some time and we're going to think about what community looks like for each folks. And I like to break it down. So let me see if I can get this open for you. I'm going to post this for you in the chat. And we're going to take some time and just identify the actual community that you will need. Let me know if that opened up that link you need.
So the link is in the chat, but like the previous one, when I clicked it, it wants me to sign into Microsoft. And I think since my email address is not associated with your SharePoint or whatever, it doesn't actually, I'm not sure if other people had that similar issue.
It should be able to just take you in there without that thing, but if not, I'll send it after this. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thank you.
Microsoft always makes it more difficult than what it has to be. So I want to talk about your community and the relationships you need to pull off whatever it is that you're doing. So if you have paper in front of you, let's talk about the people that need to be surrounded by you, because this is going to be key to attacking whatever it is the work that you're doing. You've got the collaborator. This is someone who will work directly with you to produce your bold results and your goal. So Vivi, as you're thinking about the community business, who's your collaborator? If you don't have someone in mind particularly, just put a question mark for now. And then we can identify that person as we go along. You need an accountability partner. This is someone who knows what's required to create your goals, and they take an account for how you're showing up in relative to those requirements. So I like to say the accountability partner is the person that's going to tell you the truth even when you don't want to hear it. They hold you accountable for the goals that you set before you. You've got the supporter. That's someone who creates compassionate space for whoever you're being now while helping you remember who you're becoming. As you're growing, I think it's very important that when you select your supporter for this project, whatever that project may be, that this person has compassion. So an example I think about is we were planting, it was like 2 acres of potatoes. They were going to Whole Foods, and a frost was coming, and an older farmer was like, leave them in there, just cover them. But my instincts were like, take them out. But I listened to the older farmer and not to my instincts. So 2 things I learned. 1, human beings are the only animals that don't listen to their instincts. I don't need anything to be proven to me anymore. If my gut tells me to take something out, I'm taking it out. And then 2, my supporter came back and said, hey, what did you learn from this? I didn't trust myself. Why didn't you trust yourself? And then we went all through the things, right? But they didn't put my nose in it, but they reminded me of who I was going to be, who I said I was in that moment. I needed to produce this. And these are the things that happen. So it's important that that person can hold the space for you and not stick your nose in. Nobody needs to tell you if you step into something, nobody needs to tell you, oh, you stepped into something, you can smell it, right? And then the champion, this is someone who's going to show up you, but raises your intentions off the chart. This is like the person that's going to be like, yes, you can do it. They make you feel ready. So I think of this person as your Flavor Flav. So on the teams, when you're having the farmers to work, they're going to have to think of this person that's rooting for them to accomplish whatever they want. I have one person named Yolanda. She asks me all the time, what does Amber want? Amber wants to live out her Dallas dream. She believes that she can have cattle. I can rope them, like all these things. Like I have all these pictures in my mind. Do I necessarily want to be roping cattle? No. And apparently you only rope cattle if they have longhorns. And that's not the type of cows that I purchased. So that's a whole nother issue, right? But she's going to root for me no matter what, because she's invested in believing in me and I'm invested in believing in her. And then the last person is the challenger. This is my favorite person. This is the person who is like negative Nelly or hee-haw, you know, right? Whatever, if the sky is blue, they're going to be like, there's a shade of gray. If it's perfectly, it's a beautiful day, and I'm like, you see that one cloud, you need that person. Because that person is going to that person's going to ask questions about how you plan to hold that goal or that vision into place. You're going to need that person. I call them the disruptor or the deviant. You need them. They sharpen your ideas and they force you to think better and to be better. Usually, if I can get my favorite challenger, Jorge, to be quiet, I know I've done my job. And I intentionally go to him to say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. What are your thoughts? And I tell him, because I'm like, you're the most negative person I know. But I need that. And I leverage that skill base to make my idea be sharper. That way, I don't make any oops on the back end. So we all know that this is agriculture. There's a lot of quote unquote failure, but large companies call those failures research and development. So the more you empower your challenger to help you, the less likely you invest dollars into research and development for those oops moments that will happen. So I'm going to give you a moment to kind of think about who's present on your team as you're working through this next goal that you're working through. And if it helps, I'll leave this definition up. Anyone missing someone in that role?
I will comment that I've heard some farmers talk about it can be lonely, like farming in general. Like you're right, you were the one doing all the work and it can be lonely. And so it's important to have others to reach out to.
It is very lonely. And one of the things that you will have to call to farmers is we really like doing our daily duties. Like honestly, I would love to just work my farm and have my produce go someplace. All of these Zoom meetings sometimes can be a little weird and uncomfortable. But the more you expand your business and your operating abilities, the more it makes the presidential side more profitable, more sustainable. And so you're going to have to nudge farmers to do both. So some suggestions that I have is I have work Wednesdays. So with some farmers that I'm working with in Alabama and Mississippi, I have them on Wednesday mornings and I have to hold them accountable from 9 to noon. You're working on your business. That could be your business plan. That can make your operational plans. That could mean we're applying for grants during that time. And I'm like, I'm only taking from 9 to noon because I know you have to get to the field. I know you have cattle that you need to, I know you're moving I get it. I know, but unfortunately we wear the hat of CEO and president and you can't neglect either role. So I just need 3 hours. We jump on a Zoom and I say, hey, what are you working with? And I'm able to lay eyes on them and they lay eyes on me to help them move through the space that they need to, because we need to be both until we get to the point where somebody else is doing the back office stuff for us. We're kind of a one-woman show. But what I have noticed is that they're starting to talk and to engage with each other and say, well, tell me how you do this, and what's your watering system look like for your pigs, and when do you do this, and how often do you, like, because they want that collaboration and they want that level of support, because no one wants to get it wrong at this particular point. If you're making mistakes or you're having some research and development issues, that's $40,000-$50,000 worth of learning that you could have leveraged before doing those things. So that's been very helpful. Anything else, Vivi? I see your hands going, but you may be doing something else.
I think I was just no, nothing. I was just processing out loud kind of the just the slide. So as you're talking, I'm processing and making plans for the future. So that's all.
Yeah. And I will send you guys this so you can identify what's the goal and who's the teammates that need to be there. So I always tell farmers, as you change your playground, you change your playmates, or you identify your playmates. So you can specifically call them into being as to what you need for them to do. In this role, when I go to George and I say, George, this is what I need for you to do, he already knows his role is a challenger for me on this project. I need for you to walk me through what I'm doing incorrectly or what I don't see when it comes to moving this cattle onto the farm. And I prepare myself for a whole bunch of questions that's coming, but I also prepare myself to say, he's not telling me what I can't do. He's helping me to be better at what I'm about to do. Because that's why CEOs surround themselves around that C-suite, because they're handling and organizing a whole bunch of questions that causes the business to run better. The next thing I want you to do is take some time to do some resource mapping. Who's where, if it's yellow, it's inside the organization. If it's green, it's outside the organization. So inside the organization, who are the primary stakeholders that help you to obtain this goal? So for me, one of it is government bidding. Inside the organization would be myself. It would also be my Chief Operations Officer, Sandy Thornhill. She's going to ask me, I already know she's going to ask me 20,000 questions. Whew. And it's a lot of questions. And I'm going to sit and I'm going to be in that seat uncomfortable answering her questions as it's real clear to me, but it's foggy to everyone else. And I am eventually going to have to convey whatever it is I'm trying to do. If it's a grant application, I have to convey what it is I'm trying to do. If it's a bid application, I'm trying to convey. If it's involving the extension agencies, I'm going to need to be able to articulate what it is I'm looking for, what type of support I need. And then I have to identify, just like we did before, who are those stakeholders and where do they need to be when it's time for me to do that. So I use University of Missouri Extension. Katie Nooner is my beef cattle lady. I ask her all of the questions that I need so I can understand if it's cow-calf operation, if I'm doing genetics, if I'm just doing distribution. Tell me about this. I want to do a USDA plant, but I'm not using a USDA plant. What are the advantages of, she's my go-to for cattle. When I'm working with Apex facilitators, I go to Jeff and I say, Jeff, this is what I'm doing. They all talk to each other. The Department of Economic Development, hey, I want to do this training. Will you cover me for 50%? I'm going to them for those things. Who are my stakeholders? Because they have a vested interest in making sure that my business is successful. It's the same stakeholders that come into place for the extension agencies, for the community business development, like all of those folks help to make the work a lot easier. Everybody clear? And then we're going to talk about capacity. So capacity is the ability to grow, innovate, and excel, a foundation built of knowledge, skills, and resources that drive progress. So I want you to take a minute or two, and I want you to think about your current capacity. What is it that you're doing well or not so well? And at which capacity, how are you feeling about your capacity? Is it manageable? Is it sustainable? Could it expand? And I'm going to give you a moment. And then I'm going to have you come off of mute and share your thoughts. So my personal capacity, I feel like on the produce side of the farm, we're looking good. We're hiring 3 new people. I'm doing some land erosion changes over the winter time where those beds are pulled out to deal with the slope. I called it terrace land. The people of my rural friends called it a slope. USDA said it was a slope. I was like, okay, great. I learned something new. We're going to take that out, build a retaining wall, and extend the growing space by over 3,000 feet, drop in high tunnels. What does that mean? My capacity says I needed to hire 3 additional people. What did that look like? From a funding perspective, for the financial resources and also the management resources. More than likely, they don't have a background in ag, so somebody needs to build their capacity to know the difference between what's a good plant and what's a weed, right? So I'm going to pause and I'm going to just identify some of your capacity ideas. So Sarah, I'll call on you, and then Sarah Hansen.
Yeah, it's a popular name today.
Mm-hmm.
I have been in this specific role for 1 year now. I have like 11 years with extension total, but I have more trainings that I want to attend and just ways that I know as I do build my knowledge and skills and get out there talking to more people. I think that's really going to be how I grow and how I am able to better provide service to people in Indiana. So a lot of mine, I guess, is around still some training regarding food systems, and I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so you told me what you need to gain, but tell me what you already have, because you have capacity available now.
True. I guess my network of people that I do know, whether they're in Indiana or outside of our organization. Yes, with we have some really neat different groups in Indiana. And honestly, I think Indiana is a little bit behind the 8 ball in terms of local foods. So that means so many opportunities, right? Like for us to work with legislators, for instance. But yes, those connections that I already have with our ISDA, Department of Education, Department of Health, those are great. And I just love being able to work more with those people.
So it sounds like you've got an extensive network already. It's not siloed. Bring those people with you. So the Department of Ed, talking to them about how to support the farmers that are in your area currently growing food for those schools that they service. So bringing that in within, I think it's a Go Local 100. So within 100-mile radius, all those farmers supply Indiana public schools, right? What would that look like? And the opportunity for folks, young folks, to see that farming is an actual job. So in addition to heating and cooling, cosmetology, automotive work, it's an actual industry to which they can go in directly out of high school. So adding some workforce development dollars and research into what would it look like for K through 12 to support that. Because we support all kinds of STEM activities, K through 12, right? So it would be cool to see us start to pivot and say, oh, well, let's look at ag in 6th grade. And let's understand the process of growing cotton to fluffing it out, turning it into fiber, turning it into clothing, which attacks the creative folks, gets into the science part of how it moves into actual cotton fibers and how they turn it into making it into shirts, like all of those connections. So it sounds like you've got quite a bit of capacity available. Vivi, do you want to jump in? Or Sarah Baca? It's really hard when they're not on camera to know if they're like.
Hi, sorry. I'm sorry. So go ahead, Sarah.
I was just gonna say I'm just listening in.
Okay.
If that's all right.
I can go next.
Go ahead, Vicky.
This is Vivi. Capacity that I have now. So, because it's the fall, well, ideally the weather will be cooler, but you know, climate crisis is real. So our season is definitely extending. I think right now I have capacity to do a lot of strategic thinking about next year. And this is and you know, I'm actually Sarah helps they support the Master Urban Farmer training. So taking trainings, just make sure that my skills are up to date. Doing a lot of envisioning both for as microscopic as what kind of amendments do we need for the soil, and what kind of crops do we want to introduce to the farm next year. And as big as, you know, do we need to come up with like, at least, do we need to start with like a one small source of revenue for the farm? I also know we want to start programming. So there's a lot of like strategic thinking, both in terms of operations and programming. And now, I do want to start dabbling into what would it look like to start exploring our farm as a business. So that's where I'm at right now. I feel like I have a lot of creativity space, which I don't tend to have in the summer when we're in the peak season. And we are also still doing operations, right? So we are still doing our weekly farm tasks, what are our goals for the next 2 weeks, for what are our goals for the month, and making sure those are met, making sure the farm is cared for, that we put it to sleep in the correct way. So that's where I'm at.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to go over 2 other, and then I want to get you moving and working, okay? Because I feel like I'm talking a lot, and I don't want to do all that talking. There's 2 more that are going to feed into this building your business, right? There's the capability, so the power to turn knowledge into action and challenges into opportunities. I always think of capability of like, what could I do if I had additional resources? And then there's capital. So the resources that drive growth, stability, and innovation. So capital, remember, is not just funding, although funding is very important, but also social capital. So is your group connected with other groups that have a similar mission and or complement the work that you're doing? So here we're doing food systems work. Our goal is to do a 1,500 member community supported agriculture program. And what we're using is we're using a company called Up. They're a local nonprofit urban produce push. And they're kind of the lever, they're the not only the fiscal agent, but they're the sponsor of the work. So as a farmer, I will come alongside and say, okay, there's other pieces that we want, because we want everything to be within 100 miles of Kansas City metropolitan area. So servicing on Kansas City, Missouri and Kansas City, Kansas sides going out about 100 miles. So our target is 27 zip codes. And we eventually want to grow it to 100, but I'm like, let's just start with 27 for year 1. So what we knew for the farmer side to support our urban ag farmers is that they would need manpower. So our manpower is coming from a group called Urban Rangers. They have young men from 6th grade up to 24 that are engaged in various aspects of community building. And so it could be through agriculture, it could be STEM sciences, it could be business tech, all of those things. Those young men are interested in agriculture. So some of them will come and intern, a paid internship at respective farms, and they're going to learn everything from, you know, planting the seed, raising cattle, raising goats, raising sheep, chickens, whatever it is we're doing, to the cost associated with. So how are we marketing the product? How are we harvesting? What are the food safety handles that we have? Are we checking temperatures of the refrigerators? All of the things. They'll be able to see a complete view of what it looks like to work like in the agricultural industry. And 3 of those folks will be supplied to, we're targeting 50 urban farmers to make this possible, because our goal is to have all of the food that goes into these community supported agriculture bags, so 10 to 12 items of produce and then some value added products, right? All of those things will come from farmers to which that they would know. Our hope is that people will be able to identify their farmer. So they'd be able to be like, hey, there's Farmer Amber. I met her and she does ... right? Isn't it kind of cool? We're able to name our doctors, we're able to name our dentists, but nobody knows their farmer. So we're working on that. Then on the other side is we have another partner called Health Teamworks that's going to be on the other side, and they're going to come alongside and they're going to measure our health outcomes because we're moving towards a food is medicine model. So connecting the relationship that food has that's grown around you, the connection with the bees and reducing the allergens, all those social determinants of health, and moving that in and teaching folks how to leverage it. So I gave you dandelion roots because it pulls off inflammation. It should help you with water retention, like all of those natural things. And so they're going to help us to measure those things. And then we have Black urban growers are going to be some of the growers that are growing for us, in addition to Harvarded Roots, I believe they are, which is an immigrant population from Burmese. And so we're going to be having a whole chain. I'm calling it the disruptor program, but that's not what we put on our grant funds, right? And so those are the folks that we're working with and towards to kind of put this model together. So I'm going to give you a few minutes because I want you to identify your capabilities first. So if you had additional resources, additional training, I know Sarah Hansen mentioned that she was going to do some more training in food systems to kind of get an understanding of what that looked like. What are the other things that you would be capable of doing? I'll give you 2 minutes to identify that. And then also capital. What are those resources that drive or grow that? So not only in capital, think in terms of like the funding is one area, and we'll talk about what that looks like. But we also want to talk about social capital, people capital that help, human capital that causes this vision to come together. So I'm going to give you a few minutes. And if you're welcome to come off of mute and we can just talk it through, because the next thing we're going to do is a little activity to put everything together. So if I'm looking at my own business for capability, I would say cattle management, moving them, making sure they're sick. Do I feel comfortable enough with them to give them their shots or vaccines? Do I even want to give shots at vaccinations? What's the process of making sure that my cattle are certified Angus? Would they be commercial when I mix them with the Wagyu beef? Would they be titled those things? I'm building my capabilities to understand and navigate that space. When I'm looking at capital, I'm thinking about, okay, $1,800 that it costs to purchase those Red Angus cows bred back, so already pregnant. I'm also thinking about, do I have the resources to pay for the vet when it's time for them to birth their babies? Because I don't know what to do. I've seen some videos on YouTube, but in real time and space, everything's all fun and games. So I have to put on that sleeve that goes all the way up to my arm. And then I'm like, oh, sweet Lord, what to do, right? So, but that's going to be necessary as part of owning those cattle to make sure that those babies are born safely for not only the mother, but also for the calf. For capability, did I breed them all in a season to which I would want them to birth? Because I don't want them to birth in the winter. There's too much risk for this Midwestern. So I'm just kind of talking out what I'm thinking. For community, am I close enough for Katie to come help? Would she be willing to help? And if you're ready, if you want to talk through an example, I'll come on off of mute and go for it.
I think I can share. This is Vivi.
But
I think for capacity, I think what I would need right now, and I used to have a worker cooperative small farm, and I think we ran that for oh my gosh, maybe like 6-7 years. and it was an urban farm. I think something that I noticed at the end of, as we, close the farm down, was I was having a really hard time grasping administrative tasks, specifically accounting, bookkeeping, and then creating like a structured governance was also a bit challenging. And I found myself going through countless of trainings, Zooms, in person, you name it, of business development, business plan drafting, you name it, trainings on QuickBooks, and I felt like I could never really grasp it. And I felt like every time I entered that realm, my brain just would block it. And while I was happy making strategic decisions on farms and like what we were gonna grow and how we're gonna grow it and all of that, I find myself just coming up short with that. And so right now I've identified that as a space of growth, or perhaps if we get to explore the farm as a profitable place, the farm that I'm working with right now, I'm like, okay, maybe do we need to identify someone who has that capacity, who has that brain, and that has that passion to do that work? Or if I have to be that person in the meantime, while we build up enough capacity and resources to hire somebody that can do that, like, how can I approach that information in a way that actually stays and that is sustainable? I like what you said of like dedicating like 1 day a week to just do administrative tasks, and that could mean like grant writing, reconciling things in QuickBooks, whatever it is that is needed. But I do feel like that's a space of growth for me. In terms of community, I think this is the purpose of this exercise, is to like, what are the things that we don't yet have but want, right? I think for community, exactly that. I think it will be someone that's either a part of the team or a partner that has those skills, but that also has those skills in Spanish, because some of my team is monolingual in Spanish and is able to convey information that is accessible, not only in Spanish, but I think that usually the world of bookkeeping is really, really complicated. And I think someone that can come in with that knowledge, knowing that we don't necessarily have a lot of funds for that. So any organization that provides those services, I think will be really helpful to us to at least even like start to think in an entrepreneurial way. In terms of capital, I think, I think we have a great team. That's a great farming team. I don't think any of us are necessarily savvy when it comes to actual business, like a profitable business. That would be, and I'm thinking of people as capital too, not necessarily as like money, but that is also, that's a resource. We are a resource. Our labor is a resource. And then, yeah, I think that's all I can think of right now.
So you said a few things. So one of the things I'm going to say is that everything you need is usually found in community. So talking through folks. Now, when it comes to this is a true story, is I have a value added idea to do. I want to do some trade with Japan, right? I was born in Japan. I want to do trade with Japan. And they said that I could go to a trade show for value added. And so I was like, great, value added for meat. I can make sausage, right? So Amber was going to go buy the gadgets because I already have a KitchenAid mixer, right? Problem solved. I'm going to go get gadgets and I'm going to teach myself to make sausage. So the best part about entrepreneurs is we have decided that we can do all the things, right? We can just give us a little bit of time, we can figure it out. But is that the best usage of your time? So when it comes to QuickBooks and the admin task, I would say take a generalist approach to the work, right? Have a general idea of the categories to which everything should be able to go to, so that on those Wednesdays when you're checking numbers, you can see if something's not where it is, but you don't need to specialize in it. Does that help? Because
Can you repeat that last quick sentence? Sorry.
So you can have a generalist view, but you don't need to specialize in it. So Every single thing I can do on my farm, I can do every single thing at a very high level. But I don't specialize in being able to rope cattle because I'm going to eventually hire folks that can help me that have that skill set in that capacity, right? That's their strength. I always want to work in my zone of genius or my zone of excellence. So when it comes to QuickBooks, it is a beast. Having spent all these years in math, QuickBooks had me a few times like, sweet Lord, what happened? What went wrong? Especially when you're getting the formulas written. But I worked with my CPA and she helped me to itemize because I was tearing my taxes up too. And she was like, what are you doing? I don't know. I'm doing the best I can. So that may be where you have to lean onto your community and have that conversation with you so that you can get the categories together so that you know the difference between a supply and a resource, right? So that something about depreciative values or whatever. So I would look into doing that. For capability, in general, you're adding things to your toolkit that support your innate strengths. So when it comes to capital, I always think about those folks that are experienced grant writers or experienced development dollar writers, development dollars seekers or obtainers, right? Those folks have done those jobs for years. So you hire them to probably look at a grant that you've written, but it's always going to come off better for them because they have the experience. So you don't have to be all things. Just have a general idea of what it is you want and how it is you want it to look so that you'll be able to review and add to it. Does that help, Vivi?
It does. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it took me a long time. I'm gonna step out on faith and say, in a room full of high achievers, we tend to think that we can do all things well. And that's not necessarily the case. What we can do is connect with folks that can help us to do our very best, that specialize in those areas so that it's still done at a high level, which resonates with what we're trying to do to work towards. So I'm going to make a group activity next because I think it's important to kind of walk through the process of what we're doing. So let's select a goal, and as a group, let's kind of talk through that particular goal. So does anyone have a goal right at the top of their mind that we can like call into this space that we can work through together?
I'm gonna probably default to Vivi on this, and she's doing more literally hands in the soil, boots on the ground. My goals are like, be able to teach a session to people at a workshop on X, Y, and Z topics. So it's a little bit different.
Well, let's take that goal. Sarah, what you got? What workshop are you working on?
Okay. I've had people, reach out to me of like, hey, could you teach something at our homesteading conference? I forget what the topic is because it's many, many months away, but it might be like marketing, for instance, or like small, diverse farms. And sure, I might be able to do that, but I'm not all the way there yet. So I want to get there and be, once you're the person that can teach the session, that means you can actually like fully understand everything.
No, let's go through marketing. Vivi, does that resonate? Sarah, does that resonate with you?
Yeah, that works.
Okay. So what's our product that we're marketing, Sarah?
I think the product is the workshop in my case.
No, are they marketing produce? What are they marketing?
Oh, typically, yes. It's all across the gamut, but typically, yeah.
All right. So let's talk about capacity. So I think if we're talking about produce, you would ask them, what are they currently doing, right? So just throw out some answers for me. Vivi, we're going to need you. British, you can come off too and chat. So let's say, what are they currently doing?
Usually people are, growing on a small couple acres, might some of it be like undercover so they can extend their season, but then they're selling at farmers markets often, or they have a farm stand. Marketing really is just, Facebook or talking to your neighbors.
Yeah.
And I think another hurdle is getting the marketing to translate into profit.
So before we go to profit, I always think that we have to back farmers up into talking about cost, because it's a lot of buying seed and doing all the labor, but not keeping good records to know how much time did it take you to plant that field and how much did you spend on those seeds. So keeping up with receipts, right? So that goes into your marketing, because all of that's going to go into your end product, right? So when we talk about the farm's efficiency and productivity, what all are you growing? So most farmers will plant every single thing. So all of in the spring, we're thinking of all leafy greens, lettuce, Swiss chard, collards, all those things. We're thinking hardy things as well. And then spring and summer, we're thinking of like tomatoes, cucumbers, water, heavier items, squashes, all of those things. And then back to the spring, we're going right back to those leaves. So do they have a particular place in mind that they want them to go? So if I planted 3 acres, do I have enough? Have I projected, if I'm thinking of capacity, have I projected how many of the items that I've planted can feed a certain number of families, so that I know I target 25 families before I plant? Does that help?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, if it doesn't help, just say
Especially,
no.
no,
Yeah.
if you're doing a CSA, I would think for sure, because then
Yeah.
you've got subscription.
But if we're going to the farmer's market, which is cool, how much have I planted and for how many weeks of that farmer's market will it last? So I'm trying to think, when I did the farmer's market, it started in April and it didn't end until October. So was that 16 weeks or something like that? So do I have enough? And it's going to fluctuate. It's going to depend on what like is available at that particular season. Like people always think strawberries will last all of June. No, it'll only last until it gets to 85 degrees and then they're done. Right? So what's the farm's efficiency and the productivity, right? And then the next thing I'm thinking about is, for my marketing, do I have my promo materials ready? Is my logo ready? Is the description ready? Do I have a way for folks to order from me so that I have cash in hand? Have I thought about not just doing a weekly subscription where people pay me by the week, or have I had them empower them to pay me in advance, full season or half the season? So my capacity is, have I built a website that will allow me to leverage e-commerce? Have I done a 25-mile radius around me? So visiting Starbucks, have I went to the grocery store to tell them on their little bulletin board what I'm doing? Have I went to Ryan's? All of those places that would allow me to put my flyer for free. Do I have the manpower to handle what I'm going for? So do I have an estimated target? So for capacity, I align that to intention. Why? What am I doing? What resources will help me grow? When I did last season, was I able to fulfill all of my obligations last season? Do I need to hire people? If I hire people, when did I bring them in? All that goes into my marketing. Because if I do a huge blitz on Facebook and people take me up on my offer, ooh, do I have enough manpower to be able to pack these bags or to help me harvest those fields? And feel free to jump in at any time, guys. Does that resonate, Sarah? It's a lot of questions.
But it's things that when you start asking, like, do I have this ready? maybe you don't, and that's good because then it forces you to go get X, Y, and Z ready, or just, yeah, like you said, do I have the manpower?
Yep.
Do I have the ability? And then you're just like, yeah, I can do that. And you realize then what your next steps might be.
Yeah. So when I'm planting my microgreens, they grow in 10 days, right? And I know that I want to make restaurant drop-offs on a Thursday. So instead of planting on the Wednesday, like my mentor taught me, it was making too much of a time crunch between the time that I needed to harvest. Well, my kid had soccer on Wednesday nights. That's one thing. So I lost hours there. But it was also coming into the time between run the soccer, feed the boy, do the homework, cut the microgreens. It was too tight. So I moved it to a Tuesday so that that gave me 4 hours on Wednesday morning to cut, get everything packaged for delivery on Thursday. So in capacity, we're going to be talking a lot about your operations. What is it that you do to ensure that when life lives, you can still deliver? Because life is going to life. Right? Is that fair? So those may be the questions that you're asking them in terms about capacity. Who's doing what and when? I also knew that I didn't want to be down there sorting seeds and planting trays and watering. No. So every Wednesday, what happens is when my niece comes in, she works for me. She's an agronomy major at K-State. She comes in and she weighs all the seeds and she puts them in a little container back in the container jar. And that way, when I know what chefs have ordered what, I know, oh, I need to pull out 4 trays of red radish, 3 trays of brassica beans, and 2 sunflower trays. I just pull it. All of the trays are already pressed. So I just spray, shake them down, and I'm done within 15 minutes. But that's because I was taking a whole bunch of time trying to get it together until I realized that I'm only as effective as my system. So again, when life lives, how does that allow me to people? I still need to show up as a reputable business so that I can make my deliveries. I know that my deliveries are from 9 to 11 every Thursday. That's their window. Does that help? All right, let's go right through capability. So what could you do as capability? So what are the tools, the knowledge, or trainings that you need to make access to the market secure? So since we're working through marketing, I would think of what are the tools or knowledge? Do I have a logo? Do I have any branded quick little snapshots of something like a sales pitch that I can change real quick and push out? If not, in the wintertime, then I'm creating those templates. And I'm creating those ideas to be able to do it.
And if this fits along, I've heard people talk about having high quality images for marketing.
Mm-hmm. So if they're taking all of my pictures, I use on my phone in portrait. So I take a nice picture, and that may be where you practice. So that may be leveraging a kid or somebody, because that's who taught me how to use my phone. Go into Apple, and they have like a Photoshop class where they can teach you how to take high quality pictures and how to optimize them and all those things until you can get to having someone come there. There's also like stock photos that you can get. So spending time learning Canva, canva.com, which is what I'm using today. They have all kinds of templates that they can modify where really, really quickly they can make a few adjustments and say, hey, I'm running a microgreen sale on the 30th through the 31st. Buy 3, get 1 free, $25. Contact us here. Drives them directly to their website, to which they've already built in a way for that website to take the resources. So that's building their capability over the winter months. So visiting with SCORE, AMS has great classes. Agricultural Marketing Services has great classes that talks about marketing. Liz offers some things, finding those free workshops that can help you to build brand recognition throughout. Then this is also where they're thinking about, how do I enter new markets? So with produce, if they're wanting to take their produce from going to farmers markets, there's an online farmers market called Market Wagon that some folks could do. but there's also leveraging into the food hubs and food systems that we have here. But if they're wanting to move into other things, then that means they would go and identify if they want to be GAP certified, so Good Agricultural Practices certified, or certified organic natural, certified naturally grown, certified organic, all of those extra additional marketing tools that they could add to their flyer that they can then disseminate. And I always say for capability when it comes to farmers, enabling folks to really be able to maximize the use of their smartphone. So having a QR code that they can readily send out to somebody, links on their phones that they could text people. If they want to do email notifications, they can, identifying if there's a text marketing capability that they want to do. 100% of your campaigns for text are open. You've had about 42%, I believe, on email marketing. So being able to build up what that looks like. And that could be just creating a WhatsApp chat of all your current customers and putting in there what you're trying to do. But again, that's leveraging being able to use their funds. Anybody else want to add something to the capability portion for marketing? Howard, Vivi, or Sarah, Batka, British, if you want to throw something in, you can. I always say everything we need is in the rooms, and I know it's not going to just come from me.
Do you do a newsletter? Is that something you think weekly, monthly?
So I do it. So for my CSA, they get a newsletter after, I call it the Farm Her Times. So after my dad drops off, my dad is my delivery driver, very efficient, right? So after he drops off to somebody's house, he'll send me a text, and then I will send them a text that says, hey, your produce has been dropped, and there will be a link for the Farm Her Times. And in it tells them what my farm faced for that week. It gives them a produce guide, because what I learned here is a lot of folks didn't know. I was getting all these random text messages about, what is this? And I'm just like, oh. So then I make them a foodpedia, so they'll know, like, these are dandelion greens, and this is what I want you to do. They get a recipe in there, and then I tell them everything that's in there, and that happens at the end of each week. So right at the drop off. So that's one of the duties that I do on Thursday when I'm done harvesting. I can say, oh, now I know what's in their bags. Let me go make her Farm Her Times. That was just a template off of Canva that I had personalized for me. And then I just went in and I add what we did. So everything comes back to their system. So if you're harvesting on a Thursday morning, then you know Thursday afternoon what's going to be in their bags. You create the times or the newsletter of what's in there, so that when you deliver on Friday or Saturday or whenever they pick up, it's already available. Does that help? All right, capital. This is my favorite. What are the costs? So when I'm marketing, my people have a refrigerated bag. The cost for that bag was one of the things that I put down for capital. The cost of the ice blocks or the freezer blocks that go into their produce when it gets really, really hot, since my CSA subscription model is delivery. So the cost of those blocks go into the capital. The cost of, I lay out the routine for 25 folks, or the route for 25 folks. And then I estimate the cost of driving for that, both in labor, so how much am I paying my delivery driver, and then also the mileage cost that goes in there. And then that allows me to identify what portion of their CSA subscriptions goes to fund it. If I'm partnering with another organization to kind of help offset the cost of this, then what I do is I make sure that I list, like, let's say their CSA subscriptions are $60. So if their CSA subscriptions are $60 and I know that I only want the customer to pay $20, then I've partnered with another organization to pay the $40, so that there's not a deficit for the farm. And I start having those conversations now. I usually start them in July. I don't want there to be any wasted produce, and I don't want there to be any like wasted resources on my budget side. And then I'm thinking of where can you secure your investments or grants. Business Builder is coming up. Yours has not released for your region. As soon as it does, I'll send a note to British. Here I'm in Heartland Regional Food Business Center. We are doing 3 rounds of $50,000 each. I put in for that Business Builder grant. Our Missouri Agricultural Business Development Office had a $250,000 grant. They called it a SEGA grant. Those are the times where you need to be looking at your agricultural business development side to see what grants they're releasing for food and food businesses. You also need to be talking to your Department of Economic Development agencies, which is a part of your state agricultural offices, to see what resources are available to help you meet your goals. And then you need to price accordingly. So when it comes to capital, I know how much I've spent on seed. If I had to harvest and save seeds from last year, I have a number that costs. I take the average of my water bill and I estimate how much that's going to cost me over the year. I don't just pick a number and say my boxes are going to cost $60. I've seen farmers do that and they lose money at the end. So take into consideration, if it's 2 hours of your driver driving and you're paying them $20 an hour, that's $40 for that week, but it's what, $160 for that month? Times how many months are you running your CSA? The mileage rate of 67 cents per mile, how many miles total is that driver driving? And are they using their vehicle or your vehicle? All of that goes into the capital conversation. And I'm going to pause to see if someone wants to jump in or ask a question. This is a great activity. Thank you, Sarah. For giving us a topic. Anybody?
I think I just want to say that this has been really helpful and accessible, which I appreciate. In I think this is helping me have both like a bird's eye view of what our vision could be, but also is letting me know what kind of microscopic view do I also need to have to make sure that the bird's eye view vision makes sense. That's it.
Yeah. I'm going to send you after this. There's a guide that I make that I give out to farmers. It's called, I don't know. I call it, the strategy is called IAA. I always play with the title. So IAA stands for intention, attention, and alignment. So intention is the why. Why am I doing this? And the attention is the action steps. So how am I going to get there? How am I going to support? And the alignment is the measurement tool to make sure that what I said I was going to do is what I'm going to do. Because what I've noticed in this industry, just as people are peopling, like we intend to do things, but our impact is not in alignment. So we end up doing something completely different. So the more you can like discipline yourself to write down, this is what I intend. I wish I didn't have this background on, but behind me are my closet doors that I turned into a white space. And I have literally written out, this is the 4 components of my business that I'm working on for the next 3 years. So I'm growing the produce side, I'm growing the meat side. I want to import, I want to export to Japan and Asian countries. And then I know that I want to be doing some level of government contracting. What does that look like in real world time? And how do I check? What are my checks and balances to make sure that I'm not dropping any balls, but then I'm not overwhelming myself by taking on too much? And so the more I see, and I actually, because I am a teacher, I grade myself and I'd be like, you know, you didn't do it. You know, when this person sends me an email, like I count those as a win, like, hey, they responded to my email, right? That's huge. Now, what's my follow-up and what's my follow-through? That goes back to how we started talking about the difference between a CEO and a president. A CEO has to set that strategy, so he has to follow up and follow through on if that strategy is in alignment with their daily operations. So when you're looking at your businesses or you're supporting folks who are looking at their businesses, write down what you said you were going to do and list the action steps. Now, of course, it's a living document. I always think when people's like, I wrote my business plan. Business plans are living documents. They should be updated regularly. They should be looked at regularly, right? So that you can know if what you said you're doing. Because sometimes we can have movement, but no direction. We can go real fast in the wrong direction. That does not accomplish our goal. So I just want to leave that caveat before you to like get it down and then talk through these things in a silo. It sure helps. Are there any questions that I can answer right now, or?
I see one in the chat. Howard had a question around a comprehensive source for capital and funding opportunities that you use.
So I am constantly looking for capital. I have one person on my team who sources for me capital opportunities. And so for the food justice stuff that we're doing here, what we're looking for is we're thinking about, we made a big old map of what areas this work contains, this work touches. So it's going to be, of course, in the Department of Ag with the farmers that are growing it, but it's also in Health and Human Services. So that's HRSA. It also touched into food FDA. We also have some environmental protection agency stuff that we're doing, some private foundations. So we just mind mapped and we let ourselves just throw down, literally throw up where we thought we could get funding from, and we've slowly started to pursue that. Does that help, Howard? Feel free to come off of you and jump in there.
Yeah, thank you so much. I just, I'm always looking to create an inventory because I'm connected to growers through engagement to support the Good Food Purchasing Initiative, and always looking to refer them to opportunities for capital. So thank you so much.
Have you followed AMS on LinkedIn?
No, I
USDA?
haven't, but that's a great recommendation. Thank you so much.
Yeah, they're having everybody's region is different. And I'm on this business builder grant, right? The application wasn't that difficult. But each region has a certain amount. So somebody, Appalachia is up to $100,000. I'm in the heartland. We're getting three ideas of opportunities for $50,000. And I was just looking in Wisconsin, Oregon, they have $200,000. So when it comes to your area, are you up in Indiana, Illinois area, Howard?
We're working right now in 8 counties around Chicago.
Okay.
And working to engage with growers. So, but ultimately it isn't across the Midwest that we're also engaging with growers to try to connect them to the Good Food Purchasing Initiative in Chicago.
So Bridget, as I work with those regions, as soon as it posts, I'll make sure I send it to you so you can send it out to Howard. I don't know what your number is. I have a feeling that y'all are going to be sitting right at $100,000, and it's for food and food service businesses, food businesses and collaboratives that support it. The application here in Missouri was about 4 pages. They wanted to know a little bit about my business. They wanted to know what I was doing. And it was a very detailed budget. So you have to know like what you're going to do, but it was no matching, which was the best part of this grant. You know how sometimes the grants are like 25, 50%, whatever. There was no matching. It was just for you to build your business. So as soon as that information is released, I'll send it over to British and get it out to you all. And you can take that as a framework to build other grants. And it supports a plethora of opportunities. So building that food system and moving you from being operational to profitable, Vivi, that would be a great opportunity for you. And then Sarah Hansen, it also could support some of the work you're doing with some of the extension folks that you serve.